Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Grade 10 Agricultural Sciences lesson. Today we are going to discover how energy moves through living organisms and how important nutrients are recycled in nature. Every plant, animal, and microorganism depends on these natural processes to survive. Farmers also depend on them because healthy ecosystems produce healthy crops and healthy livestock. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how energy flows through ecosystems, how food webs are formed, and how the carbon and nitrogen cycles support agriculture. Everything that lives needs energy. Energy is the ability to do work and carry out life processes such as growing, moving, reproducing, and repairing damaged tissues. The main source of energy for almost all life on Earth is the sun. Without sunlight, plants would not be able to make food, animals would have nothing to eat, and life would not continue. Plants capture energy from the sun through a process called photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, green plants use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to produce glucose, which is a type of sugar. The plant uses this sugar as food for growth and development. Oxygen is also released into the atmosphere during this process. This oxygen is essential because animals and humans need it for respiration. Since plants can produce their own food, they are known as producers. Producers are the starting point of every ecosystem because they convert the sun's energy into chemical energy stored in food. Examples of producers include maize, grass, beans, vegetables, fruit trees, and all other green plants grown on farms. Think about a maize field. Every maize plant is producing food using sunlight. The energy stored in the maize grains can later be eaten by chickens, cattle, goats, or people. This shows how energy first enters the ecosystem through plants. Quick activity. Look around your home or school. Name 3 green plants that act as producers. Animals cannot produce their own food. They depend directly or indirectly on plants for energy. These animals are called consumers because they consume other organisms to obtain energy. Consumers are divided into different groups according to what they eat. Primary consumers are herbivores. Herbivores feed directly on plants. Examples include cattle, sheep, goats, rabbits, and grasshoppers. Secondary consumers feed on herbivores. These animals are usually carnivores or omnivores. Examples include snakes, frogs, and some birds. Tertiary consumers feed on other consumers and are often found at the top of the food chain. Examples include eagles, hawks, and lions. Omnivores are animals that eat both plants and animals. Humans, pigs, and chickens are good examples of omnivores because they eat food from both plant and animal sources. Another important group of organisms is called decomposers. Decomposers include bacteria and fungi. They break down dead plants, dead animals, and animal waste into simpler substances. This process returns nutrients to the soil where plants can absorb them again. Without decomposers, dead organisms would accumulate everywhere, and nutrients would not be recycled. Imagine leaves falling from a tree onto the ground. After some time, fungi and bacteria break them down. The nutrients released into the soil help new plants grow. This is why decomposers are sometimes called nature's recyclers. Quick activity. Why are decomposers important in agriculture? Think about compost heaps on farms and in home gardens. Now let us see how energy moves from one organism to another. A food chain is a simple pathway that shows how energy passes from one organism to another through feeding relationships. Energy always starts with the sun, moves to producers, and then passes through different consumers. For example, sun, grass, grasshopper, frog, snake, eagle. The grass uses sunlight to make food. The grasshopper eats the grass. The frog eats the grasshopper. The snake eats the frog. Finally, the eagle eats the snake. Another agricultural example is sun, maize, chicken, human. The maize plant captures energy from the sun. The chicken eats the maize. A person then eats the chicken. This is another example of energy moving through living organisms. Food chains are useful because they help us understand feeding relationships, but in nature animals usually eat more than one type of food. Because of this, food chains are connected to form food webs. A food web is made up of many interconnected food chains. It gives a more realistic picture of feeding relationships in an ecosystem because most organisms have more than one food source. For example, a mouse may eat maize seeds, grass seeds, and insects. At the same time, the mouse may be eaten by snakes, owls, and foxes. Since one organism can be part of several food chains, all these chains join together to form a food web. Food webs help ecosystems remain balanced. If one food source becomes scarce, many animals can survive by feeding on another source. This makes ecosystems stronger and more stable. Farmers also benefit from balanced food webs. Birds may feed on insects that damage crops. Frogs eat mosquitoes and other insects. Spiders catch harmful insects in crop fields. These natural predators help farmers reduce pest populations without depending only on chemicals. Quick activity. Can you think of one animal found on a farm that helps control pests naturally? As energy moves through a food chain or food web, not all the energy is transferred to the next organism. Much of the energy is lost as heat during respiration, movement, growth, and other life processes. Only a small amount of energy is passed on to the next feeding level. This is why ecosystems always have many producers, fewer herbivores, and even fewer carnivores. For example, a large pasture can support many cattle because there is plenty of grass. However, only a few lions could survive in the same area because much less energy reaches the top of the food chain. This decrease in available energy explains why top predators are always fewer in number than producers. Now let us move on to nutrient cycles. Unlike energy, which flows in one direction, nutrients are recycled continuously in nature. Nutrients move from the soil to plants, from plants to animals, and eventually back to the soil where the cycle begins again. This recycling is called a nutrient cycle. Nutrient cycles are essential because plants need nutrients to grow, produce flowers, fruits, and seeds. Animals need nutrients for healthy bones, muscles, and body functions. Farmers depend on nutrient cycles to maintain fertile soil and good harvests. One of the most important nutrient cycles is the carbon cycle. Carbon is found in all living organisms. It is present in carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and many other substances that make up plants and animals. Plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis. They use the carbon to make glucose and other organic compounds needed for growth. Animals obtain carbon by eating plants or by eating other animals. When plants, animals, and humans respire, carbon dioxide is released back into the atmosphere. When organisms die, decomposers break them down and return carbon to the soil and the atmosphere. The burning of wood, coal, petrol, and diesel also releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Large forests and healthy grasslands help remove carbon dioxide from the air because growing plants continue absorbing it through photosynthesis. In agriculture, farmers can improve the carbon cycle by planting trees, protecting natural vegetation, using compost, and reducing unnecessary burning of crop residues. Healthy soils rich in organic matter store more carbon and improve soil fertility. Quick activity. Name 2 ways farmers can help reduce the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. Another very important nutrient cycle is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is one of the most important nutrients needed by plants. It is essential for making proteins, enzymes, and chlorophyll, which gives plants their green color. Although about 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen gas, most plants cannot use nitrogen directly from the air. Special bacteria found in the soil convert nitrogen gas into forms that plants can absorb. This process is called nitrogen fixation. Some of these bacteria live freely in the soil, while others live inside the root nodules of legume plants such as beans, peas, lucerne, and groundnuts. The plants absorb nitrogen compounds through their roots and use them to produce proteins for growth. Animals obtain nitrogen by eating plants or by eating other animals. When animals produce waste, or when plants and animals die, decomposers break down the organic material and return nitrogen compounds to the soil. Other bacteria convert some nitrogen compounds back into nitrogen gas, which returns to the atmosphere. This completes the nitrogen cycle. Farmers often grow legumes because these crops naturally increase nitrogen levels in the soil. This reduces the need for expensive nitrogen fertilizers and improves soil fertility for future crops. Crop rotation is another farming practice that supports the nitrogen cycle. For example, a farmer may grow maize one season and beans the following season. The beans enrich the soil with nitrogen, helping the next maize crop grow better. Quick activity. Why do many farmers include beans or groundnuts in their crop rotation program? Unsha flow, food webs, and nutrient cycles all work together to maintain healthy ecosystems. The sun provides energy for plants. Plants produce food through photosynthesis. Animals obtain energy by feeding on plants or other animals. Decomposers recycle nutrients back into the soil. Carbon moves continuously between the atmosphere, plants, animals, and the soil. Nitrogen moves between the atmosphere, soil, plants, animals, and microorganisms. Together, these natural processes ensure that life continues and that agricultural systems remain productive. As future agricultural scientists, understanding these processes helps you appreciate why farmers protect soil, conserve biodiversity, practice crop rotation, and encourage healthy ecosystems on their farms. Before we finish, let us quickly revise. The sun is the main source of energy for life. Producers make their own food through photosynthesis. Consumers obtain energy by eating plants or animals. Decomposers recycle nutrients by breaking down dead organisms. A food chain shows one pathway of energy flow. A food web shows many connected feeding relationships. Energy flows in one direction and decreases at each feeding level. Carbon is recycled through photosynthesis, respiration, decomposition, and combustion. Nitrogen is recycled through nitrogen fixation, plant uptake, feeding, decomposition, and the action of bacteria. Remember, healthy ecosystems support successful agriculture. When farmers protect natural resources and understand these ecological processes, they produce healthier crops, healthier animals, and contribute to sustainable farming for future generations. Thank you for joining this lesson. Keep observing nature around you, because every field, garden, and farm provides real-life examples of energy flow, food webs, and nutrient cycles. See you in our next Grade 10 Agricultural Sciences lesson.